Welcome to an episode, Sports Talk. And welcome to week 13. That's right, Thanksgiving weekend of the 2024 NFL season. We'll have a full buffet of games this weekend for us to enjoy in our gluttony and surrounding ourselves with family members. Nothing ruins a good Thanksgiving like talking about football. All right, but before I dive into week 13, we'll go quick overview of week 12 and how I did, kind of highlight some of the games. And I didn't do that well last week. Tell you the truth, I went 7-6. I called for a lot of games to go one direction, and they didn't. I thought games could have went one way. They almost did. Or actually did. And yeah, it was pretty bad. So let's dive in back to last Thursday with the game in Cleveland between the Steelers and Browns. And once again, the Browns showed up to play in the snow, mind you. That was kind of funny. The game almost turned into a whiteout towards the end because the snow was really coming down. And a good old lake effect right there. And I almost went with the Browns when I picked this game because I knew the Browns were going to make this and I knew they were going to make, like I said, I knew they were going to make this a game, but I thought Pittsburgh was going to be just ahead of them in terms of getting there. But the pieces they have now in place in Cleveland, they're starting to gel. Jameis Winston's starting to rise back up to the level everyone expected him to be when he got drafted by Tampa Bay those many years ago. And Russell had a hard time really getting going. Nick Chubb was a focal point of that Browns offense. He ended up getting 2 touchdowns. And Cleveland upended Pittsburgh 24-19. I mean, in that final frame, Pittsburgh was trying to try to do a 2-point play, missed out, but definitely make things interesting. On Sunday, Vikings visit Chicago. I almost went with Chicago in this game, but I did pick Minnesota. I said I was rooting for Chicago. And Chicago was actually making a game of this, especially that fourth quarter when they came back. I mean, for most of the game, they were trailing. It was, 24-10 heading to that final frame. But some miscues towards the end that really hampered them, and Minnesota able to win in overtime, mind you, 30-27. But Caleb Williams had another 300-yard plus passing game with 2 touchdowns. It is what it is. Minnesota ended up winning. Had Indy. Detroit went in. Did not really blow the doors off of them, but did enough. Beat them 24-6. New England down to Miami. Wasn't even close. I mean, it was 24 points that second quarter that really just drove home. And Tua Tagovailoa had 4 touchdowns in the air. So that offense right now for Miami is clicking. The aerial assassination they're doing is phenomenal, and the next team is going to have their hands full with them. But Miami just almost doubled up, or more than doubled up New England 34-15. Tampa Bay had in the Meadowlands, and it was not even close. Daniel Jones has been released. It was his request because he's being benched. He's like, nope, let me go. They're like, okay. They're putting in DeVito. Ooh. Look like, the actor DeVito out there, he shouldn't be out there. He was making so many bad throws, and it was just Tampa Bay just rolled him over. I mean, it was at one point 30-0, and just that final quarter, they just kind of gave him 7 points because they felt sorry. Baker was, I don't know what he was trying to do with this, because he was doing the whole thing. I don't know, he's trying to do the little Italian thing, because that's more the wrist. It's the wrist. It's the wrist paisano. But Tampa Bay has put themselves back into consideration for division title once again. Of course, that whole NFC South and NFC West both are just 2 really bad divisions, or they're just very close knits in terms of quality. Dallas went to Washington and shocked the Commanders. It was a 13-10 heading to that final frame, and all of a sudden the defenses just went away. There's also special team play. Onside kick, guy ran back for a touchdown, which shouldn't have been. He should have just took the knee, but he was looking to score. Mixed extra points, field goals. I mean, it was just special teams was the highlight of this, and low light as well. Dane Daniel still had a decent game, 275, 2 touchdowns, but Dallas all of a sudden decided to show up. Don't expect much else from these guys. They're going to have a few games here and there where they do kind of show up, but I don't see anything progressing far with them. But, yeah, Dallas kind of ruined my week by beating Washington. Then Carolina almost pulled up the upset of the year. They battled back. I mean, they were down 20-9 at halftime. Battled back and had the game tied at 27. And where the Chiefs had hit a game-winning field goal as time expired to escape Charlotte with a 30-27 victory. It's just one of those things. It's like every so often you don't focus on the game. It could bite you, but Kansas City prevailed, winning. And then Tennessee returned to Houston, and Will Levis outperformed C.J. Stroud. Who would have thunk that? Levis, over 270 yards with 2 touchdowns. Pollard became a 100-yard rusher and had a touchdown. Tennessee just could do anything they wanted to Houston, and they had no answer. Even though Houston continued to keep themselves in that game, but C.J. Stroud joined a unique club that quarterbacks don't want to join, and that's the Dan Orlovsky club of stepping out in the back of the end zone. Of course, he had a defender on him as well, so he didn't do it by himself like Dan did. So it's not quite the same level, but he etched his name to that. And Tennessee shocked Houston, giving me another loss, beating them 32-27. Denver heads to Las Vegas, and Bo Nix, once again, put on some decent numbers. He's really starting to thrive in that Peyton scheme in Denver. He really started to light it up, 270 yards plus 2 touchdowns. Denver so to leave Las Vegas 29-19. And then the Niners went up to Green Bay. I picked the 49ers. I thought they had enough pieces there to stifle Green Bay. I thought Jordan Love makes too many mistakes there so often. He forces throws he shouldn't be forcing. Give the 49ers a chance to get back into the game. But the Packers defense stepped up to counter that. McCaffrey, not 100%. He definitely coughed up the ball too many times, didn't make enough catches. So he's having a little bit off here thanks to the injury. And then not to mention that Purdy being injured kind of led to Allen to jump in for the Niners. Almost had 200 yards and a touchdown. And Green Bay just rolled San Francisco 38-10. Up there in the Pacific Northwest, Arizona came to town. I picked the Redbirds to beat the Seahawks, and it was the other way around. Seattle's defense was way too much for Kyler Murray, as he had 285 yards in the air, but no touchdowns and a pick. It was stifling to see what Seattle was doing, because Seattle even tried to make this a little bit more competitive by sharing the gifts, because this is the holiday season. But Seattle was too much for Arizona, beating them 16-6 to take the lead in that NFC West at 6-5. Even though they had the tiebreak over Arizona, that's why they're sitting on top now. And the Sunday night game, I did pick the Rams to beat the Eagles, because I thought, with Stafford, with his 2 favorite targets, get in there. I thought maybe Sirianni might make a wrong choice somewhere, cost them, and the whole thing. But The offensive line for the Eagles has really started to elevate because they created some massive holes for Saquon, who had 255 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Then had his backup had like a 40-yard touchdown run at the end. It is just phenomenal what this team is starting to do now. And they're starting to scheme in the ways. They struggled early, but once they got everything, the blueprints going, once that second half came in, that was it. They just ran over the Rams. I mean, completely ran them over. And I think that's what they have to do. I think Saquon should be the MVP. I know Allen and Lamar are definitely up there in the conversation. I think Goff's up there in the conversation. I'll put Saquon at number 1. I even put Derrick Henry. Give him a little love too. But the way the Eagles just dominated the Rams makes me happy that they're getting to that standard that I thought they're going to be at this time this year or this time around and make it to the Super Bowl. That's my NFC pick. And then we go to the Monday night game where the Ravens and had a Harbaugh Bowl go out of Wentz again as Jim and John collide. Last time they faced off was when they were coaching the Ravens and the 49ers in the Super Bowl. And Jim came up short then, and he came up short again here. It wasn't for lack of trying. And the Chargers were putting them some numbers. Roquan Smith not being in the defense for the Ravens really hampered what they're going to play. And it was just, they were just steadily heading up there, and Derrick Henry was doing his massive runs. And that's what dictated this game. And injuries by the Chargers running back didn't really help them that much. Henry had over 140 yards on the ground. No touchdowns. Lamar was able to do that because he had one. It was just ridiculous. Running to the pylon, stopped and has to watch the defender just go right past him. He just kind of turned around and went in. That lets you know what the Rams are doing. I mean, or Ravens are doing, excuse me, and how bold John Harbaugh is when he decided to go for it on 4th and 1 on his own 16. Who does that? He does. And the Ravens ended up to win, getting me to 7-6. Really getting this this week really messed up. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the full slate of buffet we have. You know, your turkey, your ham, your stuffing, your cranberry sauce, your corn, your roll, green bean casserole, sweet potatoes. You name it, this is on here. And let's kick things off with traditional games. Chicago and Detroit will kick things off on CBS on Thanksgiving with a little earlier start at 30 Central. And I saw somewhere that like the past few years that the home teams have only won 3 of these games. It's always been the road teams that have, they have nothing to worry about. They can go in there and just feel fresh. And this one is one of those games I think could be that way because Chicago's coming in there. Caleb Williams is starting to live up to the hype. He's starting to believe in the system. System's starting to work around him. He's progressing in the standards. As long as he gets rid of the ball quickly, doesn't hang on to it. That's part of his problem last week. He had some time frames where he was hanging on the ball too much and getting a sack. As long as the receivers find ways to get open and catch the ball. That was another issue he had. Receivers, dropping short catches. But if Detroit just goes to Gibbs and let him run, Chicago's showing they can't stop the run. Run it. Goff could then hit short outs and do it that way. Like I said, Goff is having an MVP style year. He should be in at least the top 5. Maybe not win it, but his name should be somewhere on that board. but this is the one that I'm almost going with Chicago just because it's Thanksgiving. They have nothing to lose. They're going to go out on this divisional game. I can see it happening. However, it's also the Bears we're talking about. And they'll find ways to not live up to the hype. They'll find ways to eagerflus themselves out of a consideration. And I would give it to Detroit. Right now, it's a 10-point spread for Detroit. I would take Chicago for the points. Because I think it's going to be a lot closer. This is going to be like the Minnesota game. A lot closer. It's going to be a fourth quarter charge by the Bears. They make this game close. I don't think it's going to go to overtime, but they're going to make it close. I think Detroit's probably going to end up winning by 3 or 4 points, but I will give it to Detroit. Then we head to the Big D as the Dallas Cowboys will play host to the New York Giants. And with the injuries, but Cooper Rush has always been proven to be a very valid backup for the Cowboys. Yeah, decent game last week. Still made some boneheaded moves. But I have a feeling that the Cowboys should have a decent time making plays. Win these games they're going to need to build upon. And unfortunately, this is going to help Dallas moving forward. And they will win. Right now, they're favored by 4. I think it's going to be more than 4. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 10-point spread, but I will give it to the Cowboys to win at home. And then for once you're done stuffed, eating your pumpkin, pecan pies, and you're just vegging, just being bloated, trying to fight the turkey coma you're about to go into, Sunday Night Football between Miami and Green Bay. This one should be entertaining. With Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa, will definitely put up some numbers. Fortunately, Love will find ways to throw picks. He does that. That's part of his charm at this point. But Green Bay also has another added threat, and that's Jacobs. And if he can get rolling, which I feel he could really dictate how this game kind of speaks. But Tua, being a little more savvy quarterback, will find ways to make sure his 2 favorite targets get the ball and run a field. I have a feeling it's going to be a track meet for most of this game. We'll see how Miami does in the cold weather of Green Bay, especially Thanksgiving night. Right now, Green Bay's favored by 3.5. This is where I go back to the former graphic of road teams winning these games. I'm taking Miami because of the fact of Tua and Love. Basically on the quarterbacks themselves, I think Tua's a little bit better quarterback than Jordan Love, just because Jordan Love does a little bit more picks. But if Green Bay can get that rushing attack steadied and keep Tua off the field, it definitely changed the aspect of this game, but I will take the Dolphins to edge out Green Bay. Well, after sleeping off of your gluttony-filled day, time for Black Friday. And Amazon Prime is going to have a nice, lovely, loving football game of the Raiders visiting the Chiefs. What better way to have a Black Friday game than bringing the black hole that is known as the Raiders? A nice heated matchup between these two. Huge division rivals, all the way back from the founding days of the AFL. Right now the spread's 12.5, and I think someone is smoking something. In the words of Jeff Saturday, you're high. There's things about Kansas City that they just find ways to win. They're not the prettiest team when winning, and especially look at what happened in Carolina. This is the team they should have just rolled over, and they couldn't close them out and let them get back into it. Buffalo, they struggle. The Buffalo, but I think I called for that one as well. Denver almost had their number. Last time they faced the Raiders, it was pretty close as well. So these are things you have to take a account to. And even though the Raiders don't have anything to really hang their hat on, it's just the fact that this is a divisional game. They're going to come out to play. But it's one of these that I think is just too much hype right now in Kansas City, even though I think Kansas City is the better team. Miscues in that defense from the Raiders should be a big factor like it was the first time around in opportunities. A part of being stupid, but I'm taking the Raiders to win in Kansas City, even though they should have no reason to do it. The only thing I'm looking at is what happened last week, what happened with Denver, divisional game. I think the Chiefs are going to get caught in a couple of these divisional games. It's just, I think it's just how it's going to be. I thought it was going to be when they were in Vegas and they didn't do it, but I must be high because I'm going Raiders. All right. Back to regular scheduled games. On Sunday, we've got the Chargers visiting Atlanta, and right now Atlanta's in disarray. I'm not sure what has transpired there. They had a great start, but they're starting to stumble, and because they're stumbling, now the rest of the division is starting to catch up. Tampa Bay is right behind them. New Orleans 2 games out. If Carolina could get rolling, who knows what happens there? And you get the Chargers coming in, limping in after, getting beat by Baltimore. So they're looking to correct their ship. Atlanta's coming off their bye, so they're fresh. Hopefully, they can handle the situation and get back to business. Right now, the Chargers are favored by 1.5. I kind of like that. This game, I think, is going to be kind of tossed up to see which team's going to actually get back on the right track. But I will take the Chargers to strike in Atlanta. Pittsburgh then going to the other side of the Buckeye State to take on Cincinnati. And the way Pittsburgh play against Cleveland, there's issues right now. And Cincinnati is still looking for that marquee win to really get back into everything. Because right now they're like 2.5 behind Denver for that last playoff spot. And if Cincinnati gets in, that's like kryptonite to Kansas City. And I have a feeling it's going to be one of those games. And Joe Burrow is also putting up MVP numbers, but not getting, the notoriety yet because of how bad Cincinnati has been playing. But if they can keep away from that front of Pittsburgh, especially with TJ Watt, and be able to attack that secondary, and then Cincinnati's defense get back there and just mess up Russell, where he just, coughs up the ball. Maybe like those seagulls from, Finding Nemo. Mine. But right now, Cincinnati's favored by 3 to beat Pittsburgh. I like that myself. I'm also going with Cincinnati to defend the jungle. Then a huge matchup between Arizona and Minnesota up there in Minneapolis. And this is the game I also went back and forth on because Arizona fell flat against Seattle. This is a game that game they should have won, that they just couldn't find anything going to really elevate them in the right direction. Sam Darnold started to revert back to his Jets form, throwing a lot of picks. But he keeps finding ways to win despite his playability. I mean, like I said, that Chicago game, that should have been a Bears win if things went the right direction. As long as Aaron Jones can run, Darnold can find Jefferson, this should be a one-sided affair. But once again, Minnesota seems to find ways to make games interesting. The points right now have it at 3.5 in favor of the Vikings. I'm going to take Arizona to win on the road to try to. They need these wins outside of the division to kind of elevate themselves, to put pressure on the rest of their division mates, especially on Seattle. But It's just one of these games that you can't count Arizona. This was a team that I counted out completely, and they're starting to come back. The way the 49ers are kind of playing, you never know, especially with that NFC West right now. It's just a collage of teams that are all basically about the same, all hit with injury bugs and similar play styles. Just who's going to, find the right ways to win with what they have. And Arizona could do that. I think Minnesota's going to find themselves struggling. Once again, I'll give it to the Cardinals. Colts heading up to New England. Old AFC East showdown between these two. That's when the Colts used to be in the AFC East. And, battle between May and Richardson. See which one will come out on top. Now, Indianapolis had some hard times against Detroit's defense. They couldn't score much, but their defense held Detroit down. New England's one of these teams that they can't get in the track meet because they're not as talented as those they found out against Miami, but they were able to put up some points. Mays has some decent numbers. He is starting to really develop into the quarterback I think a lot of people thought he would be. Right now, Indianapolis are about 2.5 in this game, and I can see why, but it's just one. New England is also one of these teams that you just can't overlook. Their record says one thing, but they are feisty when it comes to that record. There's a few games, they got blown out. I completely understand. But there's other games that could have gone one way or the other, depending on how the ball bounces. I'll take New England to win at home to knock off the Colts, and a nice shocker. The Seahawks will go over to New York, take on the Jets, and Geno returning to take on his former team to really strike at them, and so he's going to have a little extra into that. They saw what they get against Arizona. They can do the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets franchise is also a disarray. They're actually the better of the two New York teams, shockingly. But I think Seattle's going to be too much for them. Right now they're favored by 2. I like those odds. Seahawks. Head back to D.C. The Commanders play host to the Titans. The Titans had a great win in Houston. Washington had a disappointing loss at home. Daniels is starting to come back down to earth in terms of his standings as, the top rookie quarterback. I think Bo Nix may get over him in that aspect. I think even Caleb Williams are starting to move up. But I'll still put Daniels ahead of Williams, but it's definitely one of those situations where I think they need to get this game, get back into it. They need to get rid of some of the miscues they've had in the past week against Dallas, and then refocus their efforts against Tennessee. I think they can. Right now, Washington's favored by 5.5. I think it might be more 4, so I might take Tennessee for the points, but definitely go with Washington to win at home. Now, Houston, after getting shocked at home, will take their team on the road to visit Jacksonville, another franchise in complete disarray. No matter what Trevor Lawrence has done when he's able to play, when he wasn't injured. They always seem to put up good numbers, but never quite able to hang on to the win or finish it. And I think it's going to be the same issue. He's going to come in trying to find ways to get back the momentum back on their side. And this is a good way to do it against Jacksonville. Houston's favored by 5. I think that's fair enough. I think Jacksonville should make this a contest to test Houston. But I think overall, I think Stroud's going to be too much for him, and I will give it to the Texans to win on the road. Head down to the Big Easy as the Rams will visit the Saints. And it's just two teams on the opposite end right now of division leaders. Of course, injuries have played a huge factor in their problems so far this season. And I think the Saints will kind of make this a contest. And that's why I think the spread, where it's at 2.5, is appropriate. But I like Stafford better. I like the fact they have Kupp and Nakua to really throw to. I think that's going to be a huge factor in that aspect. I'm also going with the Rams, much like the spread that's picking the Rams. But I think it will be a close battle, but I think the Rams will get to 500. Then Tampa Bay will visit Carolina, and Carolina taking it to Kansas City is a huge thing. And Tampa Bay continues to find ways to, hey, here I am. Don't look at me. It's going to be one of these games. It's one of these games, don't look at Tampa Bay. They're going to find ways. Carolina, I think, is just one of these teams that are starting to bounce back. Bryce Young is really starting to embrace it. Dalton's really helped them out in that aspect. And now they got Tampa Bay favored by 6. If you saw what they get against Kansas City, you might as well throw that point spread out. This is not – the Panthers are not the Giants. Panthers are a little bit more into it. They have a quarterback identity. They just got to find ways to win. And in fact, they were so close to knocking off Kansas City. They're going to utilize that. Not to mention their win streak they had going into the bye. They're going to look at it and say, look, we're a little rusty last week, and we still came back and almost beat the number 1 team in the league. Now we got a division foe. They're going to come out there. Hubbard's going to find ways to make sure that he finds running room and whatnot. I'm taking the Panthers to knock off Tampa Bay in this aspect, just because I think Carolina's going to find ways to really mess with the rest of the South, and this is one way of doing it. Now time to head down to Baltimore as they play host to Philadelphia. And I think this is going to be like an MVP elimination game. Possibly. This is going to be a fun game between these guys. Because you got Saquon, who's just done himself. I mean, he's almost 700 yards from 2,000 rushing yards for the season. 10 touchdowns. You know his legs can do it because he can jump over people backwards. Derrick Henry is another beast of an individual. Could just run you over. Lamar Jackson is another thing you have to worry about. His passing, his running. Jalen Hurts is no slouch either when it comes to the run game. They both have targets in the receiving core that they can both throw to. The defenses also have their highlights. These are two very identically built franchises right now. And right now, Baltimore's favored by 3 points in this game. I went back and forth on this. I couldn't really decide which way to have this coin land because I do think it's going to be a lot closer. I do think this is a very possible Super Bowl preview. This is my Super Bowl pick right here. If you watch my preseason video, these are the two I had. And I struggle with this one. Way Philadelphia's playing, I mean, I didn't think they had a shot against. I thought they had a shot against the Rams, but I thought the Rams were going to pull off the win. This one, I wouldn't be surprised if Philadelphia won here either. It's just if they can just hand it to Barkley and Barkley's able to get through, bust through, especially if that line really opens up and there's no Roquan Smith to really as an anchor for that defense, things are going to happen. And then can the Georgia boys in Philadelphia disrupt both Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson? I don't know. Right now, Baltimore's favored by 3. I like that as well. I am going with the Ravens, but I'm very uneasy with this pick. Just because how these teams are both playing right now. Then we head up to Buffalo as the Bills play host to the 49ers, and the 49ers have another hard game to play. And unfortunately, I think that their season may be done. I think injuries are just going to be too much of a hassle for them to really bounce back. Nothing against him. McCaffrey not being 100%. Both right now is favored by 7. I think it's just too much Josh Allen, another MVP caliber candidate, to really look away. And I think Buffalo will make it very difficult for the 49ers. They're favored by 7. I like it. Bills. And then Monday night, this is a unique showing between Cleveland and Denver up there in Mile High. And the way, like I said, the way James Winston has really taken over this Browns team has really elevated them. They're able to take on anyone, and they will take on Denver. This is an old clash between, show my age, Bernie Kosar taking on John Elway. In those time frames in the AFC, where Denver and Cleveland are battling for the AFC championship. In the time frame, Denver's always making and get blown out in the Super Bowl. But they always had to go through Cleveland to do it. And it streams back to that type of scenario. And Knicks right now is also playing in a high level right now. He's really embraced the system that Sean Payton has really established in Denver for him. And they're living it up. The defense is actually doing pretty well. Cleveland's defense is decent. And it should disrupt Knicks. I think Denver's defense should also disrupt James Winston. But can he also handle Nick Chubb if he's back to, being full strength as well? I mean, you saw what he did last week against Pittsburgh. So it's definitely going to be an interesting showdown between these two. But I do think Denver is going to be a little bit better prepared because now they got this momentum going. They're 7th team in the AFC right now, so they're definitely going to make the playoffs at the end of today. They got to continue this momentum because they got teams charging up the hill after them, and they got to make sure they stay where they're at on that mountaintop. The Browns are going to make it close. Right now, Denver's favored by 5. I might push back on that because I think this is how close this game's going to be. I think it's going to be a 3-point affair. But I am taking Denver to win at home. To notch that 8th victory. But there you go. Those are my picks. Like I said, full slate of games. I try to do a kind of a quick fashion so I didn't make this video too long. A lot of playoff implications in here. A lot of divisional aspects in here. So a lot of games to look forward to. Full slate of games. But anyways, let me know what you think below. What do you think of my picks? What do you think I got wrong? Which game are you looking forward to this weekend? What I'm doing, hit that thumbs up, especially like the Rams and what I do, and just all my side missions and just weird angles I take and my butchering of the English language. That way you can support this channel is to subscribe. A lot of you guys review my work. I love you for doing it. Not me, you subscribe. What you do is hit that subscribe button, click that bell icon, turn notifications so next time I post any more content on my channel. And I'll see you next time. Chat Sports Talk.